Hey, Steve-December1 here with Remax West Zone Solstice. As you can see, we are in Toronto. A week before Christmas. It's going to be fun. It's obviously a lot colder here than it is in Florida. Actually, Florida has a cold snap now. They're in the 50s. And so it's quite cold for them right now, but ultimately sunshine and all beauty, so it's all good. Reporting on numbers. So we are current inventory at 10,770 units, 471 actually sold. This is obviously getting lower going into the holiday season naturally. The only thing I can say, if I had to pick a scenario going into January, into the first quarter of the new year, and I could have picked it, is basically inventory dropping down to 9,000 units and sales either staying hovering at that 400 to 600 range or doubling to the 800, which will be ideal. You'll start to see some sort of stabilization in price, and ultimately we're okay. But theoretically, what happens in the first quarter of January is people start listing their houses, so you're going to have like an influx of inventory going into it. So that's what I would expect. Sales will probably still hover around that 400 to 600 range, and then you're going to have that influx. So we're going to probably hit our lowest inventory mark right now. If we're at 10,770, do we hit into the 9,000s prior to New Year's? Potentially. So we'll see. We'll keep you posted on that. The only thing to be aware of, and listen, you can find doom and gloom in all news. What I was forecasting in February, where people thought I was insane talking about what was happening currently right now, is all in the newspaper. So I don't need to repeat that anymore. We know that all the shit that's happening. What I would pre-warn going into the first quarter of next year or all of 2023 is landlords. If you're a landlord and you have rental properties and you capitalized on these recent rent increases in the last year specifically, because 2021 wasn't that bad. 22, people were getting astronomical rents, and the news is reporting saying that, wow, the rents are so expensive. But I'm thinking, hold on here, friends. If inflation is at its highest rate, and they haven't released the last inflation for November rate just yet. They're postponing it naturally because before Christmas, they want to keep it positive. But so inflation is at the highest. Affordability is none. People are carrying the most amount of debt ever reported in Canadian history. Debt per capita, highest, 186 they reported just recently. So every dollar you earn, you're spending $1.86. Now, if you are a tenant living in Canada, where the Landlord-Tenant Board Act is all in your favor, and the landlord basically puts up with all the money, puts up all the risk, and gets no benefit from it if something were to happen legally, I'd be very, very cautious about this. And let's just say a scenario, you're a tenant. Everything's expensive. Food, gas, insurance, car payments, everything. Childcare, whatever it is. Everything's so bloody expensive. Who's the first person that's not going to get paid in this scenario? You need food and water to eat, right? To live, rather. You need transportation to get to work, to make money to sort of pay for the food and drink, right? So the first person, the weakest link in this scenario is going to be the landlord. And specifically, if you're a landlord, like a hobby landlord that has one or two properties that don't have anything in plan, you just got into the market because you thought it was a good way to make money, and you have no plan on litigation going forward, you're going to get really hurt. I think right now, everyone's got to start planning for the first quarter of next year in advance, to have like a team in place, maybe talk to a few lawyers, paralegals, someone that deals with the landlord-tenant board, and start educating yourself on how and what's the process if something were to come down the pipe. Now, the only thing that scares me is that the government's already giving out subsidies for food. We're subsidizing people to eat in Canada. This is really a different time for all of us. As much as we think this is the same period that when our parents lived in, immigrated to Canada, my parents immigrated in 68 going forward, this is a different time. This is way different. They've never experienced any of this. So ultimately, if they're subsidizing food already, I would imagine the government's going to side with the tenant and not allowing the landlord to evict a tenant on the street because it looks bad for government. So what happens now with a landlord not able to, if you're not taking into income, because a lot of these properties that have been bought in the last couple of years are over leveraged, where they're even putting money putting their own money in when they're receiving rents. So now what happens now when you're still putting money in and you're not receiving rent? This is either going to go into bankruptcy, you're going to have to sell the property, Is maybe the government going to talk to the big banks and give people, I forgot what they call that, mortgage, whatever it is, the leniency on the mortgage, where basically they steal your principal that you've already paid into it and just add it into the interest? Possibility, we don't know. So it's all up in the air. So that's my fair warning. You heard it here, folks, today for the first time. Landlords, beware for next year, because next year is going to be a different beast, something we haven't experienced in my life cycle. So we'll be here to report on it and keep you guys posted. But have a great day, guys. We'll talk soon. Ciao.